The next thing that I want to talk about is setting checkbox values in real time. And this is also using the JavaScript injector. A few weeks ago, probably a month ago or so, I did a demonstration that explained the difference between the the default action tag. I guess I'm already in here. The default action tag and the set value action tag. They do similar things. The set value, they both set a value. Let's start there. They both set a value, but the default will, I always forget which one is which, because they both change a value when you load the form. Let me go back up.
Default is the one that is at the beginning. Set value will do it every time.
There we go. Yeah. So if you set a value to a default and then you override it and you reload your form, that value will stay the way it after you've changed it, it'll persist. But set value will reset that value. So if you change that value and you reload the form, it's going to set it back to the original value. And the reason I'm talking about this is because Tanya asked me yesterday if there's a way to use the if function or the if action tag to apply values based on other checkboxes that are selected. So if I had, a set of options in one field, like 10 options in one field and 10 options in another field, if I select 3 from from the first field, she was wanting those 3 values to be set in the second field. And it seemed like it would be possible. And it is in a way. The problem is these action tags only fire when a form is loaded. So let me just real quick. I can just create a dummy instrument. So for example, if I wanted, when I check 1, I want 1 down here to be selected. Now, the idea would be that so the if action tag is different than the if function. The if action tag allows you to add action tags to a field based on some logic, and the structure of the if action tag is that it takes a condition, and then this is the action tags you want to apply if that condition is true, and then these are the action tags that you want to apply if that condition is false. So for example, if choice is 2, and since it's a checkbox, you have to do the actual checkbox value. So if I want that as 1, meaning it's checked, then I want to set the value of this checkbox to 1, or else I want to leave it as blank. So ideally that should work, but the problem is these only fire when the form is loaded. So if I go to add a record, if I check this first box, nothing happens here. But if I save and stay and it loads again, it should have set that to 1. Because it's refreshing, and I might have something wrong in my design here. But whether it works or not, the problem is that if you have the fields on the same form, it'll never update in real time. And it should work when you refresh the page. I don't know if I have, and that's the other thing too, is that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. With sometimes the set value, you have to it's either the set value or the default, and then you would have to have this field on a different page. So this would have to be on one form and this would have to be on a different form. So to get around that, I decided to try the JavaScript injector. So this took some doing because so for example, let's go to this is the field, the instrument that I created, and this is the functionality. So now if I select one, it selects one. If I uncheck it, so it goes on and off. Now, if I uncheck this one and then check this again, it checks it again. And so now these values are tied in real time to each other. And they don't have to be 1, 2, 3. You could whatever your logic is, however your field is, like if I wanted one, when I check one here, I want 3 to be checked. These are just to show that they're connected, and it's not a 1-for-1. So if I wanted to check one box here, I could have all 3 of these boxes checked. It just depends on how you set your code up. But the first thing I had to do is figure out how REDCap is tracking these values. And that's kind of the interesting part, because if I right click on the inspect tab here, REDCap treats checkboxes a bit differently than regular fields. So each one of these spans is a choice. And let me put this on so you can see it. If I hover over the first one here, you can see that it's selecting each choice. And then within each choice, there's an input type of checkbox. And then there's also another input type that's hidden. And this is the thing that I had to pay attention to, because there's 2 things happening here. There's an input box or an input that is a type of checkbox, and that's the visual checkbox here. But this input type that's hidden is where the value is actually being stored. And so you have to track that value. So if I just tracked that this checkbox was checked and then and I saved it and reloaded the page, this would show up as being unchecked because I didn't set the value in the input field down here. So this is the input field for the top one here, but each one of them has a pair of inputs. And the way REDCap checks if a box is checked or not is it adds this this checked value, and let me find it here. And you can see that it's highlighting down here. You see this value right here, it's blank, but whenever I click it, it changes to 1. And this is kind of nice in the inspect, is that you get to see what is being changed. And so REDCap adds a checked value to this. Let me just save this and let it reload. So you can see here, this attribute or property is being added for the checked value. And I think I only have the first one checked. So yeah, if we go to the second value, you see here after this event 0 semicolon, this expression, then it has checked, but here it doesn't have checked. And then here it doesn't have checked. So that's how the browser renders the checkbox value to show that it's been checked. And then you can see here that this has a value in the input, but this one doesn't have a value. It's blank. The interesting thing is that when you do branching logic, you have to say that the value equals 1. So it's in normal fields, like if this was just a text box field, if I said choice equals 1 or choice equals yes, that kind of thing. But with checkboxes, because you have these 3 inputs here, you have to account for each one of them. And the way to do that is having, you would have choice and then whatever your one, the first value, and then you would say equals 1, meaning the first choice is yes, meaning 1. But the interesting thing here is that when you assign a value to these, and let me just check all 3 of these so you can see the difference. So if I was to do this for all 3 of these boxes, I would have to do choice 1. Let me make this bigger so you can see. This would be choice 2 and this would be choice 3. But I'm setting the values of each one of those. I'm saying they're all checked. So it's like, it's a binary. 0 is off, 1 is on, yes, no kind of thing. But if I open up the inspect tab again and open these up, you can see here that this, for the first checkbox, the value is set to 1. Now you would assume that the second one would be set to 1 as well, but it's set to 2. And this value is set to 3. So those values that are being set and stored are the values that I have in the, that I've set here for the fields. So, the 1, 2, 3 here. So if I had this as like, yes, no, sorry. This would still be 1, 2, 3. So it's this value on the left, the code that you're assigning for these choices, that is being stored. So you would have to account for that. So these are all the things that I had to learn and figure out in order to even start tackling this problem. So the way to deal with this is you essentially grab the values here. So, and I'll walk you through these. They're long, but they're simple once you break them down. So this is for one checkbox. So this is for checkbox 1. And what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the input with an ID. This little pound sign means ID in jQuery. And it's the ID, this whole thing, this ID dash underscore underscore check underscore underscore choice underscore RC underscore 1 is the ID that's linked to this specific checkbox. And if we go to the inspect tab here, okay. We can take that afterwards, Carol. So if you look here in the input, this ID value that I'm grabbing is right here. And this is how the browser knows in the HTML what I'm applying the code to. And it, so I'm grabbing this ID here, but I also need to grab there's no ID for this hidden input. So I have to go by the name. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, when I click on this checkbox, I want to run this function. And if this checkbox is checked, then I want to set the checkbox value for the other checkbox. This checkbox, I want to set that as yes. And the difference here is that this ID is the check choice, because this field is called choice. This is check selected choice, because this field is selected choice, and this is RC1, which is the first value. So I'm saying if I click on this first checkbox, let me make this a little smaller. If I click on this first checkbox, I want it to set the property of checked that I showed you. It'll add that property to that element. And then I also want to set the value to 1 for that element, for the hidden element. Otherwise, if this isn't checked, I want to remove the checked property from this field here, this input, and then I want to set this value to 0. So there's not a lot going on. Basically, it's just saying if this is on, turn this one off, turn this one on, and if this one's off, turn this one off. So if we go back to the record here, that's all it's doing. Is it's saying if I click this and this is selected, I want to turn this on. And if I click this and it's not, and I'm unchecking it, I also want to uncheck this value. I'm removing that value. Same thing here. If I check this and I check this, or turn this off and turn this off and then turn it back on, it's going to recheck it. Now, to do this with all 3 of these, you basically have to repeat this code for each one of these fields. And let me open up the notepad that I have. So this is the whole function that I have in JavaScript, in the JavaScript injector. So it's just 3 copies of the same thing. So I'm saying if I check the first box, I want to check the other box and set its value. And this one is if I'm checking the second box, I want to set the value of the second box on the other field and set its value to 2. And then here I'm saying for the third box, same thing. So this is where you would set whatever fields you want. So this is the field that you're checking, that you're turning on and off, and then this is the one that you're assigning a value. So if I had if I wanted to, like, for example, if I wanted the third box to turn on when I did the first box, then I would just change this to RC3 because I'm doing selected choice RC3, which would be this one. And if you don't know where to grab or what to call these, it's always best to just select, inspect, and find the ID. And what's nice is it'll highlight exactly where you clicked. So that's how you know what ID you need or what name you need. And then here in the JavaScript, you can see that I'm using the ID value here. So let me change that back to 1. But here I'm using the name value. And what I have to do is I have to select the name within brackets here. And this is just jQuery. So I'm saying, give me the input because it doesn't have an ID value. I'm saying, give me the input that has a name of this. And that's in here as well. So once again, the code for this is going to be online. I'll put it with the video. And I'll probably add some notes here to explain exactly what these do. And then once again, I'll put the XML for the project online on our website. So that way, if somebody wants to download this and implement it in their project, you would just have to make sure that you do one of these for each input box. Now, for example, if I wanted all 3 of the checkboxes here to be checked when I check the first box, what I would do is I would just grab these statements. So I would just say, and then I would have to put these else statements here as well, because if not, you're only going to be unchecking the first box. So if I did that and got rid of these, then what this should do is when I check the first box, it's going to check all 3 of the other boxes. And I can grab this and put it in the the JavaScript injector. So now if I check the first box, they turn on and off. And no matter what combination I have, they're going to reset. And then if I check the second and third box, nothing's going to happen because there's no more code hooked to those two boxes. They're all on the first box now. So, does anybody have any questions about that?
I want to be clear for everybody that this has all been recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube site and website, and you'll be able to go back and watch it. And if your head exploded at any time during that presentation, hopefully you have good healthcare insurance, like through the university, to be treated, and I would do so immediately. Because this is a lot to grasp, and that's the beauty of the video. And you can come back to this at any time to kind of use it for how you need it. So, I mean, this was awesome. So thanks. One thing I wanted to, I'm going to grab the screen back real quick, man. Do you have another thing?
Tanya has a question real quick.
Oh, no, not Tanya. Oh, yeah, Tanya.
Thank you. First of all, Manny, thank you so very much. Yes, I do have a question in reference to. Okay, so the selection is made on the first question, and they select all three. And it, excuse me, and it just does that really great. But now the next selection, it says, you're out of the three that you chose, you can only select two. Now, if I unselect one of those, and then say it doesn't unsave it, it'll stay, right? Nice.
No, yeah, because the code here is that it's
It's for the top one, the top
yeah,
question.
because what's
Yeah.
happening now is when you it's only setting the value, this value here. So whenever you uncheck, it still has the functionality. It's not overriding any of the functionality here. So once I uncheck this, REDCap's code is taking over and it's removing that value. So it's removing that checked value and the value. It's removing this value here. So let me. So when it's checked, that check is going to be there. This checked
Yes.
property, and the value is going to be there. But when I uncheck it, REDCap automatically removes that checked property and removes the value in the box that I'm checking. My code only applies when I'm clicking on these.
Nice.
It only applies to these here. So if we selected this again and saved it, it would be checked. But if I unchecked all of these, those would go away. So
Okay.
you still have control over the field if you want to auto populate and then have somebody go through and like still be able to check them, you can still do that.
Nice. One more question, pretty please.
Mhm.
And I'll just try it on a test tube, but with that second one, could we put in maximum count of, say, 2? Okay, so the project we're looking at, they'll have 9 choices. They can select as many as they want on the first selection, but when they get to the second selection, they can only choose 3. So if I add the action tag, nice.
Like that.
Yes, yes, thank you. Then if we get that pop up,
it might not do that.
Okay,
Let's try. Because I don't know if that code is going to fire because the code should only fire when you actually select the checkboxes, and I don't know if I have this set correctly.
maximum choice, yeah. Oh, it's,
Max check.
Oh,
doesn't
max check.
work.
That's what I want. And is that the same thing where you just do 2 then?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, just without the quotes. All right, let's see. Maybe it'll. Because the other thing is, I'm not sure if it'll work because you're not. The action tags fire on the elements, and my code is kind of working behind the scenes. So I think if I did here, it's going to tell me that. But if I do this, it's not going to trigger.
it's not gonna trigger the pop-up. Okay,
Yeah. Now, if I save and stay, maybe. Yeah, because it's not going to do it. But if I uncheck it, it's not going to let me check it again. So it doesn't
okay.
work with the action tags.
Okay, thank you so
Mhm.
very, very much.
Yeah, and that might just be something where you put in the label here, select no more than 2.
Yes,
Yeah. I would have to see more how they're making the choices because there could be something in here where you set the choices. If it's a 1-for-1, it might be strange that they can set 3 here, but only 2 here. So, but yeah, on the outside, it doesn't work with the action tag. Now, what you could do is that might be something I can look into for next week is when you have an action tag on a field, it puts the action tag here. So it adds a class with the action tag. So it might just be something where you have in the code here that you're checking for the action tag. But the problem with that is going to be the same sort of thing where if you'd have to figure out how you're setting that because you want to be able to give them the choice of picking 3 here, but not here. But you want the code to do this. You want this code to do this thing and not
yes,
do that and check for max checked.
Yeah, I don't think you want to apply that if there's a choice of a maximum choice allowable. I don't think you'd want to apply that so that you don't because you're operating behind the expected behavior of the max checked field, and just make it on the user. I mean, if they got to collect, check 7 out of 15, well, you don't want to start by checking all 15 and then expecting them to uncheck. You want to make sure that they are forced to check, so you don't apply that code on that kind of field.
Yeah. And you might be able to do something with the label here and like a hidden field that's tracking how many are checked. And
Yeah.
then saying like, 2 7 or 6 more left, kind of like the max characters or character count where it says like 10 characters left, 3 characters left. You could have something that says like 2 choices left and then let them know when there are 0 choices or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah,
thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
you're welcome.